Hello everyone and welcome back to the video by me, The Witcher George. So there has been some exciting news over the past few days about The Witcher 4. And that news is that The Witcher 4 has finally entered full-scale production. Now, you might be wondering, what does this actually mean? How long will it be until we actually get the game? What is going on? There's been some images also released, so, I just thought it'd be cool to make a video today just talking about some of this, talking about some of the theories that are being thrown out there, and even sharing some of my own and just seeing what you guys think. So, let's get into it. So like many of you, I saw that The Witcher Polaris, or Witcher 4, has entered full-scale production, and I was a little bit confused exactly what that meant, but I know that the way games are typically made is you'll have a pre-production, a main production, and then a pre-launch, and then an actual launch, or post-launch development, and that's the general way that it works. But I was a bit curious about the general timeframes of this, as I'm not a game developer, so I don't know typically how long this sort of thing takes, but I found this interesting Reddit post. I'm going to link it down below if you guys want to go and read it, and it just has a pretty interesting breakdown of the kind of time frames in which these things tend to work out. So you have the pre-production, which is 6 to 12 months, you have the production, or full-scale production as the tweet says, which is about 12 to 36 months, and the number of devs typically working on this is about 100 to 500. And just to quote exactly what is written in this post, because it's a really good breakdown, is it says, all the work during pre-production is scaled into full production. Each designer, artist, and engineer makes decisions every day about how their work will support the pillars and overall vision of the game. This is where most AAA development falls down. Lack of leadership or clear direction will result in different teams pulling in different directions, resulting in work that needs to be thrown away and redone. Contractors or external vendors are hired at this point to address specific art or engineering needs for the game, cutscenes, multiplayer models, environment art, etc. QA also begins at this point as soon as playable builds are ready. So it's essentially the time in which a lot of the things that are done in pre-production are really actually implemented into the game. And then you have pre-launch, which is, as this post also says, just getting the game out the door, really trying to work on everything, fix everything together. It's a crunch time, essentially. You might have heard that terminology before. It's where a lot of games fail, or there are a lot of issues when games launch, because a lot of the problems that occur during the development aren't fully fixed. So they're now in this full-scale production period, so we can expect a release date somewhere between 12 to 36 months after that was announced, which I believe they went into full-scale production a few weeks ago, so it's already been a few weeks. So from what I can see, it will be in the next year to 3 years, but I imagine it will be somewhere between the next 2 to 3 years, something like that, unless something happens in the development that makes it even more crazy. Because something else that they mentioned is they want to make The Witcher 4 or Witcher Polaris bigger and better than The Witcher 3, which is great to hear, because I was incredibly concerned after I heard some feedback that the developers had said they'd taken on board about how some people just couldn't get into The Witcher 3 because the game is too long, or they couldn't get past the Velen section of The Witcher 3 or something like that. And, I want the game to be bigger and better. I want the story to be longer. I want there to be more zones. I don't want there to be less or a more sort of smaller scale game. I want there to be a growth in what they did with The Witcher 3. And if that means a way longer story, completely fine with that. It's great to have a long story with these kind of games. You get to feel like a proper Witcher. So another important point to consider is this graph that was released a few months ago, indicating the different projects and game dev allocations for CD Projektred's various projects. So you have Polaris, which is The Witcher 4, which has around 410 developers. You have Orion, which I believe is the Cyberpunk sequel, which has around 60 developers. You have Sirius, which has around 42 developers, and I believe that is a multiplayer Witcher game being developed, which we don't know a lot about it yet, but could be an interesting video as well. And then we have Hadar, which has around 20 developers, and so far we don't know a lot about that game, just that it's a new IP, I think from what I've heard, that CD Projekt Red are working on. Interestingly, even up to 4 months ago or so, they had over 400 devs working on The Witcher 4 or Witcher Polaris, so as they have now entered a new stage, I imagine they're going to be assigning even more devs to the project. So, we could probably, as I said, expect that release date within 2 to 3 years, something like that. I hope, if there's no issues. But based on the issues with the Cyberpunk launch, although as I've heard and as I've seen, Cyberpunk is an amazing game now, but I imagine they will not want to have a difficult launch again, so I'm guessing they're going to make sure the game is completely ready before it comes out this time. Because Cyberpunk could have been, it's already a big game, it's a big series, it's a big franchise, right? But it could have been even bigger if they just managed to nail that launch, and I feel like that's something they're really going to be focused on this time. So the next important piece of information, if you want to call it that, is from Sebastian Kalemba, who is the game director for The Witcher 4, Witcher Polaris, and when he was announcing that he was excited that Project Polaris has now entered full-scale production phase, he released this image. So as you can see, this appears to be some kind of coin. I mean, that's the best description we have. I mean, we basically don't know what this is. It could be some kind of currency for the new location, or it could have other connotations that will become apparent the closer we get to the game's release. I do have to mention that because of the massive popularity of the song from the Netflix show, it could have some relation to that, especially that CD Projekt Red are now working a lot with Netflix, especially on some cyberpunk stuff. There's even been a Witcher animation with the English voice actor for Geralt, so it does seem to be getting connected in ways that some fans like, some fans don't, but regardless of that, I'm sure using a coin has been influenced in some way by that. But basically, what I wanted to just say about this coin is a couple fan theories that have come up about it, but also some theories that I have that I think are very speculative, because I have to reiterate, we do not know anything about this coin. Like, pretty much nothing. But if you look at the coin, the theories that I keep hearing a lot about is this idea that it could be to do with the Curse of the Black Sun, because it looks like some kind of eclipse, and maybe I'll eat my words with this, but I personally don't see it. I don't know why they would be suddenly leaning so heavily into the Curse of the Black Sun. I mean, it could have a big role in the next Witcher game, but I feel like they just explored that with The Witcher 3 Blood and Wine, so it's gonna be weird if they just keep reiterating that, so I'm not so sure about that idea. It could be, but who knows. I've also been thinking a little bit about a theory I was talking about a long time ago, when I made a video discussing the possible locations for The Witcher 4, and one of my top picks is Rivia, because, well, we all know that that's where the mages fled, if you did that part of the story in The Witcher 3, and it just seems like a really interesting place to go and explore, considering all the history around it, how it used to be part of Redania and all that sort of stuff, and it seems like an interesting place. But the main reason that I was speculating Rivia in the past was because when they released the Link's medallion picture, it was in the snow, and Rivia's very north, and then if you look at this coin, it does seem like on the coin there is some sort of mountains, and then the sun behind them. Although, I do want to bring up in my next point that they might not actually be mountains, because if you really look at them, I've really zoomed in, I've really been looking at them and thinking about it, and I'm not sure if it's actually mountains. I know that this is kind of a crude drawing, so it's quite hard to tell exactly what it is, but to me it looks like kind of separated pieces of something, and I'm going to get into that in a minute. So this is the theory that I think is the most concrete, and it's one that I've been developing, and I'm sure other people have been thinking about this, because when I looked at that image in the top right, and you can see there's a kind of sun-looking thing, it might not be the sun though, we don't know, and there seems to be a kind of crescent moon, I think that's the terminology, but if you look at it, you can see that it is crossing over the sun, right? And this really, really reminded me of The Witcher 3's opening, I suppose, kind of introduction or animation, where they talk about the conjunction of the spheres. And it also plays into a lot of the theories that I've been talking about over these videos, where you have, for example, the Unseen Elder in Blood and Wine. He talks about how one day the portal to the vampire world could reopen and they could come back. And it would make sense as well, right? Because there's no need for witches in the future, really, because unless it's to kill humans, because monsters are slowly dying out. But if there was another conjunction where suddenly a bunch of monsters end up in the world and witches are needed, it would make sense to develop a new witcher school, and therefore why the School of the Lynx was developed. And in keeping with this idea around the conjunction, I was thinking about what these images, or what these sort of mountainous things underneath could be, and they look a little bit like kind of icebergs or something else, and I was thinking they look like they could be places of power. That was one thing that these kind of rock-looking things reminded me of, right? If you look at it, you can see they're all lined up and sort of separated, and it could be that there's some sort of conjunction. It's like the places of power are being imbued with magic or something like that. I mean, who knows? It could be a reference to that. I think that's a pretty interesting theory. So, to conclude, as I said, we've been given a lot of information. We've been told that The Witcher 4, or Witcher Polaris, is now entering full production, which means they're really going ahead with the game. I imagine more and more and more is going to start coming out. We have a much more concrete idea of a general release date. We know that they're really taking it seriously now. We've seen this coin, which, yes, it doesn't directly tell us anything, and I really want to reiterate that, and this is just speculation, but it does kind of line up in a way with some of the ideas we've already been throwing out. If you look at it from, oh, it could be mountains, which could be a reference to the snow, and there seems to be some kind of conjunction, or it could be the Curse of the Black Sun. It does feel like it fits within The Witcher, and I think it's going to be a really interesting future for us to keep track of with The Witcher 4. So that's all I wanted to really talk about today, guys. I'll be doing some more Witcher videos soon. I hope you guys have enjoyed today's video. If you have any suggestions for videos you would like to see, please let me know. If you want to see more videos in the future, subscribe, like the video, that sort of thing. It really helps out the channel. And just, yeah, thank you guys for watching today's video. Really appreciate it. Check out my other channels. I'll see you on the next video. Have an awesome rest of the week, guys.